Have you ever questioned why it seems that every time I strive to get better, I keep running into additional problems? Sometimes life seems like an endless test. What if I told you that your difficulties are actually a prelude to something that most people would consider a setback? What if every hardship, challenge, and moment of doubt was a sign that Allah was getting ready to elevate your status? Miselevation doesn't always feel well at first, but the problem is that most individuals don't notice these symptoms because they become frustrated. They miss out on the very transformation that could change their lives forever because they are confused and even hopeless. However, you will not experience that because in this video, we will uncover the 3 unmistakable signs that Allah is preparing to elevate you. Trust me, by the end of this video, you will never look at your struggles the same way again, and you can expect some unexpected moments along the way. These signs may already be occurring in your life, but are you paying attention? Once you recognize them, you won't be able to ignore what Allah is calling you towards, so once you see them, you won't be able to ignore it. The real question is, are you ready? Some patterns interrupt some humor, but more importantly, there are some powerful truths that will hit deep right now. The majority of people believe that if Allah is uplifting them, their lives will become easier. They will always feel at peace, their prayers will be answered immediately, and their problems will vanish. However, this is not how Allah's law operates because elevation is not about comfort. Rather, it is about transformation. And transformation necessitates growth, and growth always necessitates discomfort as Allah tests those He loves. Think about that for a second. Allah informs us in the Quran that if you are sincere in your faith, you will be tested. Why? Because faith that isn't tested is faith that isn't proven. Do people think that they will be left to say we believe and not be tested? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that when Allah wills good for someone, He tests them. This means that the difficulty you're facing right now, the hardship you don't understand, the unanswered dua that's making you question everything could actually be a sign that Allah is choosing you for something greater. It's like joining a gym and expecting to get stronger without lifting a single weight. Imagine walking into the gym, sitting on a bench and saying, I believe in fitness, I believe I'm strong, and knowing that you won't get any stronger. Of course not. Most people interpret their tests as punishment rather than preparation, and they begin to wonder why they are suffering and whether Allah is upset with them. However, what if your adversity isn't punishment, but rather purification? What if it's a sign that Allah is removing what's holding you back? Because that's exactly what we're going to uncover in this video before we go deeper. Let's talk about something that holds many people back. Fear, the fear of failure, fear, the fear of pain, the fear of uncertainty, the fear that maybe you won't be strong enough. But here's what you need to remember when Allah elevates someone. He also strengthens them. He doesn't place a burden on a soul greater than it can bear, which means if you're being tested, you're also being prepared. But here's something to think about. What if the biggest mistake people make isn't fearing their test, but fearing their own potential? What if you're more capable than you think? What if Allah sees something in you that you haven't even recognized yet? And what if this test is the only way to bring that potential out? Now that we've set the foundation, let me ask you this. How do you know when Allah is preparing to elevate you? How do you recognize the signs? Because here's the truth. If you don't recognize them, you might fight against them. You might resist the very process that's meant to transform you. And if that happens, you could end up delaying the elevation that was meant for you. So let's not waste another second. Most people interpret the first unmistakable indication that Allah is elevating your rank as a setback, but we're going to dissect it today. Sign number 1 is more difficulties in exams. Let's start with a reality that many people find difficult to believe. When Allah loves you, He tests you. According to the Quran, we will undoubtedly test you by causing you to fear hunger and lose riches, lives, and fruits. But we will also send you good news. The patient glad tidings. Why does Allah say grateful tidings to those who are suffering? Because your agony and effort are not in vain, and every challenge you face is actually setting you up for the best and greatest thing. The prophets themselves provide evidence of this. If Allah lays tests were a portent of punishment, then why did each prophet experience adversity before to their elevation? Let's examine 3 instances. Every hardship led to a greater elevation, but what if Ibrahim al-Wassam had given up? What if he had said, Ya Allah, why me? Why these tests? Allah tested Abraham al-Wassam with seemingly insurmountable trials, such as being thrown into fire. But it became cool for him. He was also told to leave his family in the desert, but it turned into a place of divine blessing. Makkah asked him to sacrifice his son, but it became a symbol of faith for generations. Why is life so difficult? Would he have been known as KH, Allah's friend number? His perseverance in the trial led to his promotion. What about you? Could the difficulties you are currently going through be setting you up for something bigger? Consider Prophet YF Ali, who was betrayed by his own brothers and sisters, sold into slavery, wrongfully imprisoned, and then elevated to a position of power in Egypt. Even though Prophet Ali Wassam lost his wealth, health, and family, he always responded with the same words: "Yes, adversity has touched me, but you are the most merciful of the merciful." And when the test ended, Allah restored everything to him even better than before. What if every painful moment was actually preparing him for that position? What if the betrayal was necessary for him to reach his destiny? What if your hardship is actually positioning you for something greater, but you just can't see it yet? Let's talk about something deeper, the purification process when you go through hardship. Allah is eliminating the obstacles, preventing your advancement, not punishing you. Like cleaning out your refrigerator, your spirit must endure difficulty in order to be raised, just as gold must endure fire in order to become pure. Even though you may not want to discard things, you know deep down that occasionally Allah will take away what is destroying your heart in order to replace it with something better. Now let's take a moment to contemplate. Consider a period in your life when you faced an unfathomable challenge, but now you can see how it genuinely aided in your growth. What if your current suffering is just another chapter in that story? Keep in mind Allah's promise that, indeed, ease follows hardship. Say a prayer for wisdom and patience. Believe that Allah's plan is always greater than your own, and seek encouragement from the Quran and Salah. However, what if Allah is not only putting you through difficulty, but also removing specific people from your life? Sign number 2, disengagement from specific individuals and objects. Separation is sometimes necessary for elevation. Even though it may hurt at the time, Allah eliminates some individuals from our lives for your protection. Not everyone is destined to travel where you are headed. Some people are distractions, and some people are preventing you from receiving your blessings. Stuff similar to attempting to bring too much luggage on a flight. Eventually, the airline will apologize and tell you that you must leave stuff behind because not everything is intended to advance with you. Prophet Musa alaihi wasallam was raised from his people in the palace before his mission, and each time he was separated from his mother, it was painful but necessary because Allah was preparing him for something bigger. What if Allah is doing the same for you? Sometimes unanswered prayers are Allah's way of protecting you. What you perceive as a loss may actually be a redirection. Have you ever lost something or someone and then realized later that it was actually for the best? Take a moment to consider that and believe that Allah removes for a reason. Remember that true reliance on Allah is trusting His plan even when it hurts. However, what if the greatest struggle is not with others, but with yourself? Sign number 3, a growing internal conflict. The struggle with yourself gets more difficult the closer you get to elevation. This is jihad and nafs. Before revelation, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, struggled with his own desires. Sometimes before a breakthrough, Allah pulls you into solitude. If you feel distant from people, it could be because Allah is calling you closer to Him. It's like trying to avoid junk food while dieting. Your biggest test always comes when you least expect it. However, conquering your desires is the key to spiritual growth. Boost your ibadah. Look for information and reminders. Be in the company of good people now. If these hardships are indications that Allah is uplifting you, what happens when you eventually realize it? That's what we'll find out next. One of the most common concerns individuals have when they experience adversity is whether it is a test intended to purify them or a punishment from Allah. The answer to that question alters everything. So how can one tell the difference? If your suffering is causing you to drift away from Allah, purification draws you nearer to Him. It's time to examine your heart if you start to doubt Allah, become bitter, resentful, or hopeless, and stop participating in prayer and worship. The true test isn't what happens to you, but rather how you handle it. If your struggles are making you turn to Allah more, learning patience and bolstering your dependence on Him, then this is not a punishment. Rather, it is a purification and an elevation. Allah gives us a powerful analogy in the Quran, and we send down from the sky purifying waters so that we may bring to life a barren land and provide drink to the cattle and humans we created. Look at how rain works. At first, the sky becomes dark storm clouds, gather thunder roars, and then the rain falls. It seems chaotic, it seems destructive, but what happens after the storm? The earth, once barren and lifeless, begins to bloom. Your tests are the same when life feels like a storm. It is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to nourish your soul and bring you back to life. Now let's take a moment. Think about everything we've covered so far. The hardships that feel endless, the people and things being removed from your life, the inner struggle you're facing. Which of these signs are you experiencing right now? Because recognizing it is the first step to understanding what Allah is preparing you for. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, Ya Allah, what are you trying to teach me through this? Now let's make a powerful do together. Ya Allah, if this hardship is meant to bring me closer to you, then make my heart steadfast. Give me clarity, patience, and strength. Remove the doubts, the fears, and the pain that hold me back. Let this test be the path to my elevation. And when I emerge from it, let me be closer to you than ever before. Now that we've recognized the signs, the next question is, how do we respond? That's what we'll uncover next. What to do when Allah is elevating you. Imagine someone tells you, you have been chosen for a major promotion. How would you respond in a position of great responsibility? Would you be anxious, excited, or prepared? That's exactly what's happening. Allah is elevating you, and elevation necessitates preparation. So what do you do next? Let's talk about how to remain strong during this process. Even when things are difficult, keep praying, making dua, and turning to Allah. Have faith in the process and realize that Allah is in charge of everything. If your younger self could see you today, what advice would they need to hear? Your future self is currently depending on you to continue. So let's try something strong. Surround yourself with the appropriate people. Seek out reminders, education, and people that encourage your beliefs. Please take a moment to close your eyes. Take a deep breath and then consider a time in your past when you felt far from Allah. Perhaps it was during a difficult time or when you were lost. What if you could look at your current struggles in the same way, and instead of asking, why me? You started asking, Ya Allah, what are you preparing me for? This is the power of changing your perspective. And once you do, everything changes. Now that we know why we are being tested, it's time to uncover the biggest challenge that comes right before Allah elevates you. And believe me when I say that, you must be ready for this moment because it makes or breaks everything. The darkest portion of the night occurs just before dawn, while the point of maximum exhaustion occurs just before the finish line. Let's have a look at history. The most difficult test of faith occurs just before Allah raises you. And most people give up at this point, not because they lack strength or merit, but rather because they were unaware of how near their breakthrough they were. Allah tells us in the Quran, so have patience and know that His promise is real. Don't be bothered by people who don't know. But how do you remain patient when your test seems to go on forever? Let's talk about that next. Sabr isn't just waiting. Sabr is holding on when everything inside you wants to let go. Sabr is trusting Allah when you don't see the way out. Sabr is repeatedly choosing faith over fear. Keep your eyes on the wider picture. Keep in mind that this is only temporary. What you're going through right now is only one part of your story. Continue to make dua even when it's difficult and you feel nothing. If your heart feels numb, seek for spiritual reminders. Be in the company of those who remind you of Allah. Read about the Prophet's hardships. They faced much more difficult circumstances, but remained unwavering. Since you are so near to eating while you're starving, the last 10 minutes of waiting is the longest. If you give up just before the meal is given, you'll never experience the pleasure. Let's take a moment to address some typical anxieties. What if I don't see any progress? Just because you don't see it doesn't mean Allah isn't working on it. You don't fail when you struggle. You only fail when you stop seeking help from Allah. Before they ever emerge from the ground, seeds silently grow underground. What if my dua isn't being answered? We've already heard your dua. Allah either grants your request for something better or shields you from something you were unaware of. What is the one worry that is preventing you from moving forward at the moment? Consider it, since the following section will demonstrate. There are indicators that your breakthrough is imminent, but most people overlook them because they are too preoccupied with their problems. Let's find out what these indicators are together. Imagine that Al-Wassam and his people were standing in front of the Red Sea with the army of Fan behind them, preparing to destroy them. At that moment, everything seemed lost. But just when they thought there was no hope, Allah split the sea, and what appeared to be an impossible barrier turned into the path to victory. Sometimes Allah allows your test to reach its highest point, so that when He delivers you, you know it was only Him who saved you. Here are 3 signs that you are at your Red Sea moment. Right before a breakthrough, everything feels more difficult than usual. The test gets harder because you're near the end, and Shaytan wants you to give up. All of a sudden, you have an internal shift and begin to see things differently. You feel drawn to Allah, and even in the midst of your struggles, doors start opening in unexpected ways, and you get guidance. The question is, what occurs when Allah elevates your status? You have endured the difficulty, been patient, and trusted Allah. Now, what comes next? Elevation offers 3 things: clarity, or an opportunity you never saw coming. The real question is whether you will recognize these signs when they occur, or if you will mistake them for setbacks. If you are reading this right now, know this: a stronger connection to Allah will give you a sense of peace that can only come from deep reliance on Him. You will also have a clearer purpose and a better understanding of why everything happened the way it did. The cycle continues even though you are stronger, wiser, and more prepared. But how do you make sure you stay elevated? You're not by yourself. The elevation you have been praying for is already on its way, and Allah is with you. May Allah elevate our rank in this life and offer us patience during our hardships in the next. Clarity in our struggles and elevation through our faith. Let our struggles draw us closer to you, and when you raise us, let us remain humble, grateful, and steadfast. Amen. What was the most important lesson you learned from this video? Leave a comment below, share your thoughts, and share it with others if you think it was helpful. May Allah elevate you in ways you never thought possible, and until the next time, keep your faith strong.